would you do if someone stole the key that could unlock everything you ever wanted? Like what would you do? What would you do? Because I've learned my journey of being a mom, being a young pastor and leader, being someone that people just look at often and finding who I am in God. I've learned that who you claim to be shapes everything that you do, and nothing moves in your life until your identity settles. Let me explain. I'm coming back to YouTube after 10 years of starting. I believe I started my first YouTube journey in 2015. Now it's 2025, but I can remember when I first started my YouTube channel, I was doing like comedy videos. You know how they used to have Vine and stuff. I was doing the comedy videos. I was just like doing what if videos, like when your black mama walked through the door, videos like that. And then I got saved, and immediately after I got saved, I remember most of my videos were definitely videos telling people they about to go to hell, and videos that were telling people, you better get saved right now because Jesus is coming tomorrow. But I feel on that journey I was trying to find who I was, what my sound was, what I was called to do in the earth. And so I was just pretty much in a season where I was picking up what I saw. And then after I went through that season of being newly saved and actually teaching people to hell, right? Then I got into this space where I was just talking about what was trending. And so I talked about, whatever celebrity was falling off or this or that. I just kind of was seeing what everybody else was posting about that was getting views, and I was repurposing that. And I just was like, I don't really, this is not something I feel like I can keep up doing with. I just ended up getting distracted. And after that season, I was vlogging. I think vlogging was really where I started to feel like, oh my goodness, I love this. But I stopped for whatever reason. I know I got married and I'm having kids and getting into ministry and things like that. But then I got to a point where I realized, this is really my gift. I feel like rooted in my identity is knowing that what the Lord has, the experiences that the Lord has brought me through, the things that He has taught me, I know that He's gifted me to verbally teach that to other people. And my medium has always been socials. But I say all that to say, nothing moves in your life at the pace that God is calling it to move until your identity is settled, until you're rooted. I was being transparent with some of the women of God at my recent gathering in His image. I was telling them, I feel like just this year, my identity has finally settled. I know that I'm a woman of God with a mighty call on my life, but I had to finally sit down with God. I had to sit down. I had to slow down. I had to take down the things that I built over the years that I thought was it, but it was never quite the right fit. What mama said was it, what daddy said was it, what grandma says was it. But the enemy's biggest tactic in this season toward women of God is to get them confused about who they are. There are you watching me right now that know you're called to the makeup industry. You're called to the business world. You're called to motherhood. Maybe you haven't been able to have children yet. You're called to be a wife, but you may not be married yet. And the enemy is trying to taint you, trying to distract you from what you're called to be and what you're called to do. But I believe that we're coming in a time where it's about to get very clear. And so I'm making this video because I want to highlight the attack of the enemy. And these are some ways that you can kind of point out the lies that the enemy has been telling you. If you feel like you've been called to something and you're always getting challenged in that area, it's like you're consistent on it sometimes, but then life happens and you get out that route. But you feel like when you're doing it, when you're believing for it, when you are talking about it, it's something in you that lights up or it gets stirred. I like to call it, you get a burden for that thing. You get a burden for the business, the children, the spouse. You get a burden for whatever your thing is, your realm of influence is that God is calling you to. Then that's how you know that's something that you ought to pursue. That's a aspect of your identity, who you're called to be. Because I like to let women of God know, like, hey, I think motherhood is beautiful. I think being a wife is beautiful. I am both of those. But there is also something outside of those things that God says that you are. Like, you have to know that before you are those things, that you're the head and not the tail. You have to know before you're those things that you are called and your price is far above rubies. Because if you get into those things and you don't know that your identity is rooted, when that gets shaky, when the kids get rocky, when the relationship gets weird or whatever, you go through a season, then you start to feel that because it's not working or because it's not right, that your identity is now different. But you have to understand and know that your identity is rooted in God. Somebody ought to comment that. My identity is rooted in the Lord, and who He has called me to be has not changed. It hasn't changed based on my failures, because I used to think when I got it wrong, that automatically took me out of my seat. It took me out of my place with God. I can't, I didn't name me, so I can't erase my name. Glory. Somebody ought to shout right there. Glory. I didn't make me, so I can't automatically change my name. And so you have to know that it's rooted. You have to know that it's rooted. When you know that you are rooted and that is your identity, like, no, I am rooted, then everything you do comes from a place of you being safe. You see, if you have this identity that says, I'm not safe, I'm not secured, like I'm only in this place, but I'm passing by, I don't feel like this is what the Lord has called me to, then you'll never put down real solid footing to continue in the things that God is calling you to do. And so you have to know that you're rooted in God. You have to know that your price is far above ruby, so you don't just settle for anything. There are things that people ask me to do, and while I'm not too good for those things, I just know that they're not my thing, because my price is my price. And it may not even be the price, but it might be my time. Right. And so I understand that because my price is far above rubies, that includes my time. That includes what I focus on. And so I can't just be watching everything. Because who you claim to be shapes everything you do. If I say I'm a consistent person, then I'm going to be consistent in everything that I do. If I say I'm a disciplined person, I will see the fruit of that in what I do. This is why I don't believe what people say. I believe what they do. Because you're telling me you this, but you can only manifest what your identity is. It don't matter how. All you gotta do is watch. All you gotta do is watch somebody. You want to know who somebody is? Just watch it for a little bit. But I believe that you are getting a revelation of who you really are. Because what the enemy is trying to do is trying to get you to be so confused that you pick up anything you see. Like, I love Sarah Jakes Roberts. I love her clothes. I love how she does her podcast, how she has her books. I love that. But that is her call. And if I'm so focused on hers and what she is and what she's doing, I will miss what's right in front of me. I will miss the gems that God is doing in me. And so I'm encouraging you, woman of God, to stop believing the lies that the enemy is telling you about your identity. And I encourage you, these are some action steps I encourage you to take for you to begin to walk in the truth of what God has called you to and come out of the lies. The lie identity, right? I stole that from Myron Golden. The lie identity, and begin to embrace the identity that God has called you into. I want you to write down some common lies you constantly hear about yourself. Maybe you weren't really sharp with learning or really profound in school. Maybe you constantly calling yourself slow or you don't catch on fast. I mean, all of these things keep you from really trying. They keep you from being present. Maybe you failed in some area before and you know God is calling you to try again. Like, you have to track. You have to track these things, because untended to, they will begin to grow. Weeds untended to begin to grow, and they begin to make the rest of the harvest not as plenty, right? And so we have to snuff those weeds out. So what lies have you been believing about yourself? What good things are others saying about you that you find out hard to actually believe are true? I know. Listen. As a young pastor, people call me pastor. I was still looking around like, who is y'all calling? It took me a long time, because I wasn't in that identity. I was called. I've been called it, but I had to believe it for myself. It had to be revealed to me for myself. I had to agree with God for myself. And so, what are you hearing that's good about you that you have yet to actually receive about you? Is it in your gifts, your talents, the things that you're doing well? Are you able to actually receive the good about who you are or what you're doing? Or is it always having to come through the walls, the barriers of your mind that say, but you could have did this though, all that junk, right? And then write down, do you really believe what the word says about you, right? And then if you are struggling, the areas that you see that you're struggling at, I want you to begin to give those to the Lord. Begin to ask him, Lord, help me receive what you said about me. I believe it for my sister. I believe it for woman of God down the street. I believe it. It seemed like, but when it comes to me, help me receive the truth of your word. Father, you said you created us in your image and in your likeness. Where in my life am I not walking in your image and in your likeness? It is my desire to do that. It is my desire to look like you in every way. In Jesus' name, I'm praying for you, woman of God. Write down those lies that the enemy has been trying to rehearse in your mind and begin to embrace who you are in the Lord. I'm telling you, you practice this for the next 30 days, your life will shift. I'm excited to see you. I'm excited to see you grow, continue being who you are in God. Love you. Bye.